First guest, Michelle Schneider, Chief Market Strategist at MarketGauge, joining this morning from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Michelle, it's always good to see you. What do you think about stocks at these levels?
Well, yesterday was sort of an interesting day because we look at these calendar ranges and we like to break it up into January and July, half and half. And what we saw yesterday was that we continued to hold up very well in the growth area, particularly if we're looking at semiconductors and some of the tech stocks. But some of the other sectors that really measure more the domestic U.S., in spite of the GDP, the things that we like to look at like small caps, transportation, and retail in particular, they had a failure under those July highs after they struggled even to get through them. So I think we have to have a little bit of caution here until we get through some of this data over the next couple of days, the FOMC, of course, tech earnings, and then oil and gas earnings on Friday, before we really feel confident that this rally has more legs and we don't necessarily are heading into somewhat of a correction. Not bearish, but a little correction.
What do you want to hear from the Fed Chair Jerome Powell when he speaks this afternoon?
Well, we already know that there's rumors about dissent, two members dissenting potentially if he stays pat, which I think probably is the consensus and makes a lot of sense. So we'll be looking for that because that will give signs to how much influence this admin is having in terms of its demand for lower rates. And the other, of course, will be what he says going forward about the potential in September. I think the market is poised for lower rates at some point, regardless of what happens today. And we can see that through the long bonds. The PLTs had a nice breakout yesterday over 87. And if that area holds, I think that means it's kind of inevitable.
President Trump announcing a 25% tariff on India, plus a penalty for trade with Russia. That was coming out earlier this morning. Michelle, as these trade deals and tariffs factor into inflation, what have you seen on that correlation?
Well, certainly yesterday we saw a rise in oil as a result of those statements and energy in general, which even if we step back from the headlines from yesterday, we have to annually, this is a strong period for energy. And B, we cannot have the increasing growth of AI data centers without energy. And even though uranium has been the kingpin, we're looking, of course, to see what happens with natural gas, which is excessively cheap, and oil, which WTI over $68 is bullish. So that just added, pun intended, fuel to the fire of what could be a really nice move up in spite of what happens with the market, obviously accepting an overall crash in the whole energy, oil, gas space. And we're very keen on that right now.
Yeah, interesting. So, of course, the dollar has been a topic of conversation this year. We've seen the dollar pull back a bit. Where do you see the dollar heading from here, and what's going to drive that?
Well, right now, obviously, we had GDP strong today, and the EU tariffs really squashed the euro, and that helped the dollar. So right now, the dollar is bouncing after being very oversold. Whether or not it's actually changed the trend and will continue to go up, I think we'll have to look at around 100. If we're looking at DXY, that might be the area where if it clears that, we go, okay, dollar's back, and what does that mean? Certainly all of the people that were looking for a tremendous crash in the dollar will have to reevaluate. And of course, the whole BRICS scare goes back to the back burner.
I know you mentioned small caps earlier, energy as well, Michelle, but from a sector basis, what are you noticing in the market?
Well, I'm noticing, obviously, that the growth is still carrying the ball. We had comments that AI is going to create more millionaires than the internet. And what's essentially going to happen is this growth is going to continue. But that doesn't necessarily always translate into buying, continuing buying. So let's just talk about that for 1 second, because right now I look at NVIDIA as obviously the kingpin of the entire market, and it ran into some really good resistance up here. We break through it, then obviously everything's going to go up. But if we start to sputter there on top of sputtering with small caps, that could be a bit of an issue for a correction. Otherwise, around the board, I continue not only to like energy, but I like the things that support in other ways AI. companies like Chemours that makes the Teflon coating for the chips. I look at Symbotics, which is a robotics company. I'm trying to find the things that support AI more than actual just buying the things that are like AI generated, like an NVIDIA, or tonight we have Meta and Microsoft reporting. That'll be interesting as well. And of course, my beauty trade, Kristen, I am still all about that.
What within the beauty space looks attractive to you?
Well, ELF is doing incredibly well. It's holding. I think if it holds around 115, that looks good. It got up to around 120, 121. That continues to break out. I would follow it. I think it's still relatively undervalued. We saw Ulta. Ulta was a spectacular move. Very quietly went from 350 up to like 515 is where it's trading right now. I mean, that's extraordinary. And then if you look around some of the other ones that have been influenced but haven't actually moved yet. iPars, which is a perfume company, Urban Outfitters has done pretty well. You know, you kind of want to look around and see what are these new consumers, these thinner consumers going to buy and continue to buy, regardless of the headlines with Novo Nordisk. We know the diet drugs are here to stay.
It's interesting. And of course, I know you mentioned AI earlier, Michelle, the chip making space as well. We do have a semiconductor, in fact, going public here at the stock exchange today, Ambic, which our viewers can see behind me, the signage. We're awaiting that opening bell and, in fact, some remarks in the boardroom from its executives. I do want to ask, we've seen IPOs certainly come to market this summer. That window does seem to be back on. What signal does that send to you?
Well, that's very bullish. That's healthy when new companies are coming out and they're beating their expectations on their IPO. I mean, obviously, Circle was the great example of that. But I think this particular tech company will be watched carefully. You know, what's so interesting about tech in general, besides the fact that we have Meta and Microsoft reporting today, we have
Michelle. I am going to jump in here. We're listening to remarks, about to hear some remarks from Ambic underway in the boardroom. Michelle Schneider, Chief